Well, there was a bit of trouble at that point because all the theatre owners heard about this and came in like shoals of sharks. But the deal had already been sorted out and there wasn't very much they could do. My idea of the theatre was that it should be not only just an auditorium, but a place where you could eat, where you could have a drink, where you could read books, where you could sit about, where you could chat. I think this was a thing that Lord Goodman was so against, you know, the idea that a theatre should be an entertainment complex. But I think that's what it should be, and I feel profoundly that just tarting up the facilities is not really what it's about. I was very interested in getting the Garrick's Head involved, and then with a coffee bar next door and a restaurant going along the top of 3 buildings, and on the top probably some small sort of service flats for the artists. But there's no reason why art shouldn't be everything, not just a theatre club where only kind of thespians revel. This is the chronicle of the 23rd of January, 74. The champagne still flows in London and Royal Crescent, but Charles Ware is feeling the cold wind of change blowing through the empty property market. I'm pulling out, he said today. Bath's colourful property man is being squeezed out by soaring interest rates, building costs, and a mortgage slump. Friday, June the 28th, 1974. That's show business, that was. I just can't afford it, says Mr. Ware. Charles Ware gained a son this week and lost a toy. He found it too expensive. Theatre is a rich man's plaything. Mr. Ware, being in property, is not rich at the moment. Yesterday it was announced that he's sold his stake in Bath Theatre Royal to the man who helped him to buy it a year ago. I got out of the theatre because if you're a property developer relying on sales, like I was, and nothing is sold for 12 months, your property starts to cost you money in interest instead of making it. I've lost an enormous amount of money during the last 10 months, about $750,000, I suppose. Last year, one was borrowing money at about 10 or 11%, and this year one's been borrowing it at something like 20%. I could see it happening in the earlier part of the year, and so I thought the best way to do this is just to let the clerks take it over, because after all he had the nerve to put up some money with me, to go in with me on the thing, and so I thought rather than wait till the last minute, it was best to allow them to actually take the thing over and get on with it in their own way. It's wrong in Bath terms, in provincial society terms, that someone who's a bit of a loon should actually succeed. And so it sort of reassures them when they see you come down with a thump. They sort of think, oh, well, that was bound to happen, and it somehow justifies the fact that they've been working away for 40 years and have achieved certain status in the city. That's very sad, because one will never have a theatre like that again, probably. Because of the total slump in the property market, I had no income. And with no income, I couldn't afford to pay the interest on the money I'd borrowed to develop the properties. And that's when the banks step in.
Even since we started shooting this picture, you've lost the Cleveland.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What was the loss on the Cleveland?
Well, I don't know. I suppose about 130,000 or something unbelievable. This is what makes me feel that I'm probably not a real businessman, because business is essentially a defensive activity. In the fact that it was empty and it wasn't being run in a proper business-like way as a boarding house or a hotel and things has probably cost me about 30 or 40,000, I should think, in terms of the actual depreciation on the property. Because I mean, the Cleveland was really in very good nick when I bought it. I mean, it was full of beds and clothes. The Cleveland Circus was really quite something. It was in June or July 1972. It was a bit Martian, you know. It was as if just suddenly in the middle of Partley Street
a sort of spacecraft had landed, but it was in the disguise of a Georgian building, because inside was all chaos. It was a completely instinctive thing, you know. It had no logic behind it.
If the market had kept rising, would this place have made you a millionaire? Would it have just sort of tipped you over the...
Oh yes, I think so, yes. I think I would have been your actual genuine old-fashioned millionaire, yeah. Which was a sort of amusing notion anyway.
Tell me what your accountants advised you to do and why you didn't do it.
Well, they thought that if I got everything together and sold everything and had a Jersey company or something, certainly offshore, certainly not in Britain, that they could probably have fixed me up with about sort of 30 or 40,000 a year for the rest of me natural. I don't know, that seemed to be, I was just doing what everyone does, you know. In a way, I think I probably prefer to live on the edge, because otherwise I don't function. Wow. What a room.
Did your wife think that you should get out while the going was good?
Not really, you know. When she first met me, we were living in a furnished room in someone else's flat in Soho, so that she never joined me for the flesh pots of Egypt, you know. But she certainly, I guess that women, especially with children and things, one doesn't want a little security, and I suppose next time round I might sort of at least put a house in her name or something, you know, so that one had that kind of basic security.